What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Overboy and I'm going to be doing my review for the 2012 movie, The Amazing Spider-Man. So this was the first reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, and this one's directed by Mark Webb and is pretty much a retelling of his origin and everything. So of course he gets bit by the spider and becomes Spider-Man again, and Uncle Ben gets killed and he decides to become Spider-Man, and everything that inspires him to be Spider-Man. And this movie he's kind of searching for answers about his family and why his parents left him with Uncle Ben and Aunt May, and he goes to one of his father's old friends, Dr. Kirk Connors, who is doing these experiments on animals with missing limbs, trying to find a cure to make them regrow their limbs and everything. And in the process he ends up turning himself into a giant lizard, and Spider-Man must save the city from him, as he has lost his mind and is planning on turning the entire city into lizards. Yeah, so that's the stake of the movie. If the lizard gets away, he'll turn the entire city into lizards. It's really kind of a dumb story, to be honest with you, but I've never really been a big fan of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but especially this one. The second one, I think I don't really care too much for either, but I really don't like this one. When it first came out and stuff, I was not really wanting to see it. I was really mad when I heard that they canceled Spider-Man 4, because anybody who knows me knows how big of a fan I am of those movies. And if you've watched my reviews over the past few weeks, you know I love Sam Raimi's movies. Even though Spider-Man 3 is not super great either, but 1 and 2 are my two favorite superhero movies of all time. But this one, when it first came out, I was really reluctant to see it. I almost didn't even ever give it a chance, and then I was like, fine, I'll go ahead and watch it when it gets out on video on demand. I rented it for like $1.99 or whatever when we had video on demand, and I really didn't like it. I've watched it a few times since then, trying to give it another shot, and every time I watch it, I don't like it. I don't hate it, but I don't really like it either. There are some moments in this movie that I think are good, and there's some things about it that I do like, but there's a lot that I don't. But so I'll go ahead and get into the stuff I like first, because there's not a lot, but there are a few things that I think Andrew Garfield is good when he's in the Spider-Man costume. I think he's fun to watch. He's funny and stuff, like his little quips are funny, and but I don't really like him when he's playing Peter Parker. Personally, I think that he just feels miscast and everything. He gets Spider-Man down pretty good, but he's just not very good as Peter. At least in this one. I think he gets it a little bit better in the next movie, personally, but I just don't really buy him being this big nerd and stuff, and him getting bullied and all that. I just don't really buy it and everything. I didn't really like that about him. There are some other things in the movie that I do like, though. I like Flash Thompson in this one. I think this one has the best Flash Thompson, really. He's a bully and stuff, but I do like that he kind of gets a redemption in the movie and everything. That was one thing I did like. And I think Emma Stone is great in here too. She is one of the best casted characters in the entire part of this Spider-Man franchise, where she plays Gwen Stacy. I think she was the best cast in here. And there are a few moments in the movie, like when he saves that little kid on the bridge and stuff. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. And the scene when he is fighting the lizard in the school and everything. I think that was a pretty cool scene in the best scene in the entire movie, which was to me the highlight of the movie. The one thing that always makes it worth watching is Stan Lee's cameo when he's dancing in the library to the music and stuff, and Spider-Man and Lizard are fighting in the background and he didn't even notice it. That's just awesome cameo. It's one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos and everything. I absolutely love that little moment. It's easily the best part of that movie, but of this movie to me. Like, out of everything in this movie, that was the one thing I really liked. As for the negative stuff, there are a lot in here. I don't like a lot of the retreads they did in this one. The way Uncle Ben died in this one, I didn't really like. I didn't really like the way they did Uncle Ben in this movie. Like, he just kind of seemed like a jerk and stuff. Like it kind of seemed out of character for him. The way he went off on Peter for leaving Aunt May and stuff. And I get they have arguments and stuff, but it was just the way it was executed. And Martin Sheen's performance, he wasn't real great, and it's hard to watch this and not compare him to Cliff Robertson, who was absolutely perfect as Uncle Ben in the Raimi movies. Now, I'm trying not to do that, but it's really hard not to, because I didn't think he was very good as Uncle Ben. He just doesn't have the same impact that Cliff Robertson did, if that makes sense. And Sally Field as Aunt May, she was fine, but she didn't really do much in here. She's definitely not near as good as Rosemary Harris was, or Marissa Tomei would even be, really. And she wasn't even really there to because she wanted it to be there. She had a friend that was dying, and this was going to be one of the last movies that her friend was working on, so that's the main reason she did this movie and everything. And you can kind of see it in her performance in these two movies, that she's kind of just there. She was in the second one because she had to be, because of, I guess, contract and stuff, but I think she's okay as Aunt May. And Sally Field is one of my favorite actresses and stuff. This is far from her worst movie, but and everything. I still think Legally Blonde 2 is way worse than this, but I just don't really care for Aunt May and Uncle Ben in this movie. I just felt like they were miscast. And as far as the Lizard goes, I think he's probably the weakest Spider-Man villain out of all the ones that we've had in movies. I don't know why, but I'm not a big fan of him. And Rhys Ifans, or however you say his name, that plays him, I think he does try his best and everything. He does the best with what he has to work with. Same with everybody in this movie. I think they all do the best they can with what they have to work with. But he's alright as a character. I just don't really like his design and stuff. Once he becomes a lizard, he looks pretty terrible. The CGI is pretty bad. I've seen worse, though. It holds up better than I expected it would, but the CGI still is pretty bad in this one. And the lizard's motivations and stuff, wanting to turn everyone into human, or all the humans into lizards and stuff, is really dumb. And everything. I never really got that, and I just don't really like the character. I think he's easily one of the weakest villains. Sorry. But yeah, so yeah. I will say, though, that the score in this movie is done by James Horner. And while I don't like it quite as much as Danny Elfman's score for the Raimi movies, it is almost as good as those. That's one thing that I can say that this movie did do really great, was it had a really great score that was really the movie didn't deserve and everything. Like, the score is way better than the movie itself. And there's like the whole subplot with Peter trying to learn about his parents and stuff. It goes nowhere in this movie or the next one. I really wish they would have just kept that out of both movies, because it doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't add anything to the story, really. And everything. I don't really like that about it. Maybe if we would have gotten more movies and stuff and things would have made more sense over time, maybe it would have worked better, but the way it turned out, I just didn't really like that. And this movie just kind of felt like a rehash. And I remember the marketing, they were like trying to say that this was going to be the untold story and everything of Spider-Man and how it was going to be different from all the others, and it was just pretty much a retread of the 2002 movie, just done a lot worse. And Spider-Man's suit in here too, that was another thing I didn't really like, was his suit looks pretty awful. I know a lot of people didn't like his suit. It kind of, to me, it looked like it was made out of a basketball or something. It just didn't look right and everything. That's one of the things that they fixed in the second movie that worked really well. But, and I think that Dennis Leary as Captain Stacy was just, he was fine, but his death scene was not very emotional. They tried to make it emotional and stuff, but you don't really spend enough time with the character to really care about him and stuff, and it just didn't work. And like Peter and him didn't really get along and stuff, and he gets all emotional when he dies and everything. You're supposed to feel bad for Peter, but you don't, because it doesn't work and everything. And I felt like Uncle Ben's death wasn't, and this one wasn't as emotional as they were trying to make it be either. I will give Andrew Garfield props for the scenes when he has to be emotional and stuff, like his crying scenes. He is really good in those scenes, and it really shows that he can be a really good actor and stuff. Like I said, I don't think really blame him for this movie and everything, even though I would say he is definitely my least favorite out of the ones to play Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I will say that he does do the best that he can with what he has to work with, and I'm hoping that if he does show up in No Way Home, he kind of gets to have more time to shine, and actually with a better written story and stuff, maybe he'll do better. But all in all, I think this movie is pretty bad. It's mostly because it's boring. It's really slow paced, and sometimes in movies like this it works and everything, but for the most part it's really slow paced and not a lot of fun. It has some good action scenes, but not enough. And I'm usually not one to complain about not having enough action in superhero movies. Like Endgame barely has action until that last 30-40 minutes of the movie and everything, and I love it because I just love watching the characters interact. This movie isn't like that though. There's just it tries to set it up and build up this world that could have been executed better. We've seen it done better. We had seen it done better and stuff before anyway, and this one doesn't hold up a lot like the Raimi movies do. They hold up really well, but this one, to me, it doesn't, and never really struck a chord with me though. I've never been a big fan of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I'm not going to be as harsh on it as I used to be, because I was a lot harsher on it when I was younger, but I do like some of the things about it. There are some things that I like, but I just don't love this movie and everything. So I'd say I'd give it a 4 out of 10. Like I said, there are a few things that are good about it, but for the most part I don't really care for this one, and I wouldn't have even be revisiting it right now and reviewing it if it weren't for the fact that we're getting Lizard in Spider-Man No Way Home and possibly Andrew Garfield. So I decided to revisit the two movies in preparation for that. But yeah, I don't really care too much for The Amazing Spider-Man. It's just never been one of my favorites. I can watch it, it's watchable, but it's not very enjoyable, if that makes sense. I can handle watching it every now and then, but probably won't watch it again for quite a while, because it just isn't one that I like to revisit and everything. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of The Amazing Spider-Man. Do you like it more than the Raimi movies? Is Andrew Garfield your favorite Spider-Man? I know there's a lot of people that do like it more than Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire. I know he has his fan base, but I'm curious to see what you think. Or do you think, like me, he has had a lot of potential and stuff? There's just the movies that he's in aren't very good. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.